So in this video, we'll be focusing on multiplying and dividing with negative numbers. Now, the key thing to remember is that when multiplying and dividing with negative numbers, that the digits in your answer will be exactly the same if all the numbers were positive. So once you have the correct answer digits, then the only thing you need to do is to decide whether your answer is going to be positive or negative. Now, there are several ways in which you may have been taught or may get taught on how to do this, but I would say a fail-safe way of learning this is that if you have an odd number of negative numbers, then your answer will be negative. If you have an even number of negative numbers, your answer will be positive. So therefore, and now typically you're always going to be multiplying or dividing by two numbers, or at least dividing by two numbers. So if the signs of those two numbers are the same, then your answer is going to be positive. If the answers are different, then your answer will be negative. Now, when you are practicing working with negative numbers, either multiplying, dividing, or adding, subtracting, you might find that in some of your questions you've got brackets. Now, when it comes to working with these questions, a lot of questions tend to have brackets around certain numbers purely to emphasize that the numbers you're dealing with are negative, so you're not getting confused with subtraction. So you might find that this is the only case where this is going to be the issue. So for example, with question 1, we've got brackets around the -9. The brackets there are just to emphasize that you're dealing with negative numbers, nothing else. So try not to get too confused with asking why certain numbers have got brackets around it. They only tend to have brackets if they're negative. So let's put into practice what we discussed earlier. So here we've got -9 times 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is do 9 times 1, which is 9. And so all I've now got to decide, is it -9 or is it +9? Now in question 1, you can see I've only got one negative number. 1 is an odd number, so therefore it's going to be -9. With question 2, I've got 1 times 3, which is 3. And you can see here I've only got one negative number. So 1 is odd, so it means the answer is going to be -3. With question 3, I've got 8 times 5, which is 40. And here you can see I've got two negative numbers. 2 being even, so therefore the answer is going to be +40. Now, you don't have to write a plus to represent a number as positive, you could just leave it as 40, but again, if you did write plus, then that's absolutely fine. Continue with these questions then. So question 4, I've got 8 times 10, which is 80, and I've got one negative number, so therefore it's going to be -80. With question 5, I've got 11 times 11, which is 121, and again I've got one negative number, so it's -121. With question 6, I've got 3 times 2, which is 6. Now here I've got two negative numbers, so that means the answer is going to be positive, so it's +6, or +6 I should say. With question 7, I've got 2 times 3 again, so that's 6, but here I've only got one negative number, so then the answer is -6. With question 8, I've got 2 times 12, which is 24, but again I've only got one negative number, so it's -24. And then question 9, I've got 12 times 5, which is 60, but I've got two negative numbers, so therefore it's going to be +60 or just 60. And then finally, question 10, I've got 9 times 8, which is 72, but I've got one negative number, so then the answer is -72. So moving on to questions that involve more than two numbers. So again, what we're going to do here is we're going to do 5 times 3. So we're just going to imagine that all the numbers are positive. So I've got 5 times 3, which is 15, times 2, which is 30. Now, sometimes the question might ask you, well, the common teachings are that if the signs are different, that it's a minus. If the signs are the same, then it's a positive. Now, the problem here is that we've got a mixture of minuses and pluses. So you automatically think, it's going to be a negative answer. But this is why understanding the fact that you're counting how many negative numbers you have reflects on the sign of your final answer. Now here I've got two negative numbers. 2 is an even number rather, so therefore my answer is going to be +30. Now working with question 2, I've got 10 times 3, which is 30, times 2, which is 60, but here I've got 3 negative numbers, and 3 is odd, so therefore that the answer is going to be -60. Now when we move on to division, this works in exactly the same way. So again here I'm going to do, if I get used to a different colour pen this time, I'm going to do 3 divided by 3, which is 1, and again I've got two negative numbers, 2 being even, so therefore it's positive 1. Next one, I'm going to do 40 divided by 8, which is 5, but I've got one negative number, so it's minus 5. Then 80 divided by 10 is 8, and I've got one negative number, so it's minus 8. And then I've got 121 divided by 11, which is 11, but again I've got one negative number, so it's minus 11. Next one, I've got 6 divided by 2, which is just 3. And again, I've got no negative numbers, so it's just going to be positive. Then 16 divided by 2 is 8, and I've got two negative numbers, which means that the answer is going to be positive. And then 24 divided by 12 is 2. Two negative numbers mean that the answer is going to be positive. And then 40 divided by 8 is 5. Then one negative number means that the answer is going to be negative. And then finally, 72 divided by 9 is 8. And I've got two negative numbers, so the answer will be positive. So then finally, moving on to a question that involves more than two numbers. So again, I'm going to do this separately. So I'm doing 100 divided by 2, which is 50. And so we'll just write 50. And then 50 divided by 5 gives me an answer of 10. So now all I've got to do is count how many negative numbers I've got. Well, I've got 3 negative numbers, and 3 being odd, which means that the answer will be minus 10. Now, we'll have some practice worksheets in the description below with some answers for you to check whether you're getting them right or wrong. So I strongly recommend that you practice those questions to try and gauge an understanding of how much you've learned by watching this video.